is actually, it's like 5 o'clock in the morning. You don't know what time it is. What am I saying? It is dark, stormy, rainy, almost snowing outside right now, and I'm gonna get on a flight. It's that time to get on a flight and head north. You guys, episode 4 is coming in hot for you right now, and we're gonna go get an update. So, been here before, rinse, slather, and repeat. All right, let's hit it.
Pretty bumpy the entire way based on reports we've had already from people coming in. Just the way things are here flying in Salt Lake in the wintertime.
You've arrived at your destination.
And back. And back. So here I am in Boise again, and it's snowing. It's snowing real good. And yeah, so you guys had asked a lot of really good questions on the last video, and I want to hit on them in this video especially. There was asking about the weight, total weight of the camper. Did we have a goal for that? Oh, asking about the suspension. You guys were wondering about that as well, that rear suspension and being able to handle the weight as well. Seems like weight is definitely everybody's question, because they want to know, you know, it is a Tacoma platform and you do have a weight limit, but what are we doing to go and work around that? So Dan has a lot of good information, and so we'll go chat with him about it all, and he can answer that for you guys. Winter's here. What the heck? There was no fall. Anyway, it's freezing. It's cold. Let's go inside and let's go chat with Dan. All right, we're here in the garage, and let's start this right off with one of the big questions that was asked is the weight of this thing. Everyone's losing their minds. They want to know what's the weight of this, and rightly so. It's going on a Tacoma bed, so you can't go too crazy with it, but we are thinking this through very thoroughly, and we got to figure it out, as Dan will allude.
Yeah, so really you have two kind of goals when it comes to weight. You can either try to make it as light as possible or as functional as possible. And what we decided to do was we want this to be the most functional camper we can at the lightest weight possible. But ultimately it needed to have the features. It's got to have the battery system. It's got to have storage. It's got to have a real mattress in it. All those things have weight to them. So the camper body itself, the tray, all of that actually we anticipate will weigh less than the previous setup. I mean, I can pick this up with one hand. The other end's on jack stands. I mean, two people can carry this and move it around. This is basically your finished framing, and it's that light. But you start putting all the other components, the cabinetry, the batteries, the mattress, water, fuel, all those things, that all starts to add up. So when we went to build the camper, we were trying to make it as light as possible. It is all aluminum. The tray is steel because we needed the strength there. The skin is an aluminum honeycomb skin, again to save weight. The insulation is foam insulation, so again not adding very much weight. In the future, you'll see what we're doing for the interior, again with weight consciousness in mind, but ultimately it has to function. It has to be a comfortable place to live, and if it needs to weigh 1,000 pounds fully decked out, then that's what it's going to weigh.
So, yeah, like he alluded, we think it's going to come to about, we think it's going to come under what my old setup was. So that was with the truck bed, that was with the Vagabond camper, and then all the modifications I did inside, as well as all the build out and everything like that. This is going to come in actually lighter than that, which is a win.
The rear bumper.
And the rear bumper. Yeah, let's add that on. That's what?
Yeah, the rear bumper weighs 250 pounds with 2 swing outs and everything. We're incorporating a bumper into this system. That's going to be a lot more compact. So, I mean, all those things, it's a hard question to answer. Ultimately, we will weigh the truck when it's all said and done. Kristen, I believe you know what it weighed previously. So we'll be able to get a final result. But there's a lot of different things changing. All of them impact the weight. So talking about the weight, you know, what can a Tacoma handle? You know, my Tacoma has a drawer system in it. I do have an electrical system, rack and tent. I have the long range tank. Actually, I have 16 gallons of water. I've got my big steel rear bumper. I put the dogs and kids in there, and my truck weighs 7,000 pounds. I mean, all those things add up. Every gallon of gas, 6 pounds. Every gallon of water, 8 pounds. We've talked before where you driving by yourself almost exclusively versus me with 2 dogs and 3 kids, I'm carrying 400 pounds more than you just in people. The parameters with which Toyota or a vehicle is designed, you know, they have a different set of parameters. We've modified them with oversized tires and, you know, lifts and different springs. And
yeah, it's true, because the weight that they go off of is off of the stock components, whereas, okay, now you start upgrading the leaf pack. I now have a different leaf pack, and you do different springs, and you have this, your weight changes.
It does.
So if you modify, now it goes up.
You know, those are things to consider. You know, one of the reasons we stuck with the factory mounting points for your tray was that's where Toyota designed this frame to hold its weight. You know, we don't need the X brace in there anymore, but the frame does. So we left it unmodified in order to maintain that. You know, when we took the receiver hitch out, which was part of the bumper, right, that's going to give it the strength across the back. We replaced it with stronger material. This is, you know, 2x4 box tubing, fully welded. You know, we box sectioned the inside instead of leaving it as C-channel. All those things to try to maintain the strength and structure that it was originally designed to have.
People out there are going to raise their voice at the fact that I'm doing this on a Tacoma. It's just kind of why this platform. I don't know if people are concerned about the weight, that, you know, it's too much for a Tacoma, it's too small, like go for a full size, go for a bigger size.
Everyone has different parameters and different concerns. As far as the size, why would you need a bigger truck? We gave you more square footage inside this camper than you would have in a full size pickup van on the same footprint as a Tacoma. I drive a Tacoma for the same reason a lot of ways you do. We want to go places where some of those big full size trucks either can't go or risk body damage if they do go, or trail damage. Some of these trails, you tear them up if you go on a full size. And I love full size. The Tacoma is rated at, you know, what, 1,500 pounds of payload. Well, we're actually within that if you look at what's in the bed. Where a lot of those other weights, and why these, I mean, mine weighs 7,000, yours weighed 6,600, whatever. You know, it's the rock sliders, it's the front bumper, it's the winch, it's the tires. The tires alone have more weight to it. Well, that is unsprung weight, meaning it's not on your springs, it's under them. So that weight transfers to the frame differently than the weight in the bed of the truck. So it's such a complicated question that there's almost not, in my opinion, a single answer to the question. That's why we were just trying to go as efficiently as we can with the build. Your batteries are going to be placed over the axle. All that weight is up at the front where the axle is there to support it.
This build's going to be more efficient in that regards too. I mean, I went for efficiency in space, but I'm also designing this time around to be weight efficient.
Yes.
I'm not going to have this giant awning on the side that weighs a lot and makes the whole truck lean.
Yep. But we do know that we can make this truck drive, we can make it perform. You've already re-geared, springs, brakes, all those things can be upgraded to help with some of that. And honestly, the truck's gonna drive great.
I think so. I'm not worried about the weight. We're doing it right this time.
So since you guys saw the camper last, we've been working on all those little details, the framing and whatnot. All these upright supports have been added. This corner is starting to take shape. The rear corners took shape. All the bed supports underneath are in. We gapped those up so we can put insulation in there. The whole top frame got built on. The window, last time you saw it was duct tape and cardboard. Now we have an actual framed in spot for that turn overland window. So really the whole thing, the framing is just nearing completion, and we're on to skinning it out, building the lid, and then into the inside. So in the last episode we had the camper built to just the bottom structure here. It was barely over the roof of the cab of the truck, but we hadn't really established yet how thick it was going to be. Now most campers like this are going to try to keep a really narrow profile. They'll maybe just have a thin piece of foam as a mattress, but since Kristen actually lives in this truck full time, it needs to be comfortable every night, not just for a couple nights and then you can go home to recoup, because this is home. And so we went thicker with the top so that we can have a full-size RV mattress in here that will actually be able to stay made. We aren't having to put sleeping bags away. Bedding can stay on the mattress in place where it belongs, just like if it was at home. And then the wedge, instead of sticking up an additional few inches above this, will actually overlap the sides. So the whole structure will have a narrow area, which will be the insulated roof, and then it'll overlap. So we went as low as we could while still maintaining the functionality of a comfortable full-size bed.
Okay, so here's the thing. I've alluded to a couple upgrades that are going to happen to the actual truck itself, which is awesome. I'm pretty stoked about that because it's like, yeah, okay, we get this great new home and camper, but while the truck is stationary and is clearly not being used, why not utilize and take advantage of this downtime and do some upgrades, do some maintenance work, things like that. So coming down the pipeline, I had planned to come in and just have a truck day. I'm gonna come in myself and start turning wrenches, and you know, I miss that about my truck. I actually have days off where I'm sitting there so bored, and all I wish is that I could be working on my truck right now. That's all I think to myself is like, man, I wish I was there. I could work on my truck, turn wrenches, you know. And I personally love working on my truck. It's one of my favorite pastimes. So in lieu of that, I'm going to come back up here and do some repairs and do some maintenance work on the truck. I've got a wheel bearing. I've replaced the passenger side, but now I got to do the driver's side. So I got a wheel bearing to replace. I got a Tom Woods drive line coming. So got to get that guy installed. My rear diff is leaking. This is the story of my life, that's a whole process in and of itself. And yeah, just a couple of like little maintenance things that we got to tidy up, and so that the truck is now performing as well and is going to be just ready to rumble when the house goes back on, and I can roll out of here and just be confident that, okay, cool, the truck is solid and is also ready to go to the best that I can do. That's the plan.
So when we were designing this camper, obviously one of the biggest things was functionality. I mean, we just keep coming back to the functionality of it. And we want this to be a 4-season camper. It doesn't matter if we're headed up north or if Kristen's down south. Insulation is going to be important. You're either trying to keep the heat out or keep the heat in, right? So when we came up with the framing structure, we used 1x1 and 1x2 square and rectangular aluminum, which allows us to put the skin on the outside, which you should be able to see here shortly. And then also we can insulate the air gap in the middle with 1 inch of foam insulation, and then interior paneling will cover that. So you have a small insulating factor in the skin, 1 inch of insulation in the wall, and then your decorative panel on the inside, making this a true 4-season, ready to go anywhere camper.
Oh gosh. Okay. Ooh. All right. How about we talk about some modifications to the truck to handle the weight of the new camper, because that is a concern that some people have voiced. Kristen, how is a Tacoma able to handle the weight of a camper like that? Well, my truck is heavily modified and it can handle the weight. The reason are these bad boys right here. And these leaf springs are actually off of a Chevy Silverado. They are 63 inches long and made for a full-size truck, and they're on my Tacoma. These things are rated for way more weight, and I have put them on a Tacoma. Now, don't get ahead of yourself. These do not fit on a stock location mounting for typical Tacomas, right? You can't just put these on there. There has been a lot of modification and custom work to extend the mounting points to allow these to fit. So did this a few years back and modified it to fit these full-size springs under here. But hindsight 2020, it was a good move because they handled the weight perfectly for the Vagabond camper and truck bed prior, and moving forward, guess what? They're gonna handle the weight of the new camper even better. So that is why I'm not concerned one darn bit about whether or not this truck is gonna handle the weight, because it's gonna be just fine. But thank you for your concern. I hope I have resolved your concern. These things are gonna be just fine. Okay. Get out of here. Bunnies.
At this stage, we're really focusing on trying to think ahead to the different features that Kristen's going to want to have with the camper, and adding any structure or attachment points that we're going to need. So an example of that is we're going to be doing a drop-down work surface table at the back. So we've gone ahead and put in a 3x4 reinforcing bar that's going to allow us to bolt the hinges all the way through this structure, rather than just hanging it from the skin or trying to hit the studs. It just gives us a nice solid platform to mount the table to. We'll also have that on the side for an awning. It'll be over the doorway. Just all those little details are just, now's the time to do them so that we don't have failure points later, and ultimately get a better result.
Why did we decide to do this design?
So the big thing was, when you look at it from the back, it has a really wide look to it. And so by bringing these corners in, it finishes the vehicle off. So if you think about car design, they don't, like a hatchback, they just chopped off the back, right? And it looks kind of goofy because the back car seems to be missing, back of the car. So what we did with this is, instead of just ending the camper, we're trying to just give it that kind of finished flow to the back, and it kind of finishes off the overall look.
Okay, so people might wonder or ask, like, why am I going through all of this effort? Why am I doing all of this work to put it on a Tacoma platform, right? And you know, the simple answer is because that's the vehicle that I have. That means I'm not gonna sell my truck to get another truck to do this. I have the Tacoma now, I have the ability to do this, and guess what? There aren't very many Tacomas out there that are going to this extreme, so it's also like, why not? I'm doing it because I can. Would I love to do it on a giant Ford or a Ram? Sure, that'd be awesome. I don't have that kind of money. And honestly, it's just me. Like, at the end of the day, it's just a one-person show. So why do I need a giant full-size truck? I don't. The Tacoma has always been the perfect truck for just me, myself, and I. It's tiny, it's cute, the wheelbase is awesome, and it works for me. Why do I need to go and change to some ginormous vehicle for the sake of a camper? I don't. And I love my Tacoma. I'm not getting rid of my Tacoma to do a whole nother build. We're gonna build this thing right. It's gonna work. So to all the haters and naysayers that are complaining to me about why I'm doing it on a Tacoma, I'm not listening to you anymore. But that's why. I love my Tacoma. And it's the vehicle I have, and it's because I can. So just to wrap it up super quick, that is episode 4 for you. Thank you, as always, for following along and watching. Hopefully we answered a lot of your questions from the previous episode. Yes, read them, leave them in the comments below because, yeah, if you guys have any questions about the build, I'm happy to answer them. Me or Dan, whoever knows it best. And so there were some good ones from last time. Again, a lot about weight, but I think we covered that pretty heftily. Yeah, unfortunately there wasn't a whole lot on this episode. Next episode will definitely have a lot more, and that's kind of how that goes. A lot of progress, and then maybe not so much progress, and then back to a lot of progress. So work with what we got, and it's still informative. We had some good stuff on this episode. There's a lot going into this. There's a lot of cool things, and I'm just stoked that you guys are just as excited as I am. It's really fun to see that. So I appreciate each and every one of you, and for watching and following along. I think this is going to turn into something really freaking cool, and you're along for the ride. Anyway, my flight is boarding, so I gotta get going, and this is your Badass Brunette signing off. See you guys on the next video.